A stepmom named Laura wrote to me recently, and what she said will feel very familiar to many of you. She said, I feel like I'm constantly managing everyone's emotions in our stepfamily. I'm thinking about the kids feel, how my partner feels, even how his ex might react. My partner does not seem to carry it in the same way. Why do I feel responsible for everyone's emotions? Laura described constantly scanning, thinking ahead, trying to keep things calm, trying to avoid tension, trying to make sure nobody felt uncomfortable. And if you've ever found yourself doing that, adjusting your tone, choosing your words carefully, holding back what you really think, not because anyone explicitly asked you to, but because you're trying to keep things steady, this episode is for you. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Stepmum Space Listener Questions with me, Katie South, where each week I take one of your questions and talk it through here, not just to reassure you, but to help you understand what might actually be happening underneath. As always, the names are anonymised, but the feelings and situations are very real. Now, the situation Laura's describing doesn't show up because you're too sensitive or because you're overthinking. It usually starts in a really understandable way. You care about the family working, you want things to feel calm, you want the relationships to settle. So you begin paying attention. Who might be upset? What might cause tension? How might something land? And over time, that awareness can quietly turn into something else. You stop just noticing emotions and you start managing them. Now, this is what I call emotional over-responsibility, and that's where you end up holding emotions that are never yours to carry. And underneath that, what's often happening is over-functioning, where one person starts taking responsibility for more than their share in the family system. Now, emotional over-responsibility is where you begin to feel responsible for how everyone else feels. Not just your own experience, but the children's reactions, their feelings about things in your home, your partner's stress, the atmosphere in the house, even the potential ripple effect of decisions. And here's the thing most stepmoms don't realise. You didn't consciously decide to take this on, right? You just became the one who noticed everything. Often stepmums are really sensitive, empathetic people, and we notice things. And because you noticed it, your brain tried to manage it. Now, on the surface, this can look like being thoughtful, emotionally aware, considerate. And it is. But underneath, it's heavy. Because you're trying to stabilize something that has multiple people, multiple histories, and multiple dynamics, and no one person can actually hold that. And here's the part that doesn't often get spoken about. Because when you spend long enough managing everyone else's emotions, something starts to change in you. You become more aware, more watchful, less relaxed in your home. There's a slight tension in you, a kind of internal bracing, waiting for something that might happen. And over time, something else can slowly start to creep in. Resentment. Not because you're a resentful person, but because you're carrying something that was never meant to be yours. You might notice it in small moments, feeling irritated when the kids need something, feeling frustrated with your partner, even when he's trying, or having a thought that feels a bit uncomfortable. Why am I the only one looking out for everyone's emotions? And that's usually the turning point, because it's no longer just about caring, it's about feeling drained by it. Now, something else that often shows up here is confusion about why your partner doesn't seem to experience things in the same way, and Laura mentioned it in her question. You're thinking about everything, and they just seem to be able to carry on. And that difference can feel anything from confusing to deeply frustrating. But often what's happening is this. You have taken on the role of the emotional stabilizer in the system. Not because anyone formally gave it to you, you definitely didn't apply for it, but because you're the one most attuned to the emotional shifts. And once that pattern is established, it becomes automatic. So your brain starts asking questions like, will this upset the kids? Will this cause an issue with the ex? Will this create tension later? And suddenly you're holding an emotional equation that includes multiple people all at once. And that's why it feels so consuming, because your brain isn't overreacting, it's actually over-functioning. It's trying to manage a system that contains a lot that isn't actually yours to manage. Now, I know there'll be lots of you listening thinking, yep. Okay, what do I do? Now, this doesn't just change by telling yourself to care less or stop overthinking, because it isn't just a mindset. It's a pattern your nervous system has learned. So what helps? The first step is simply to notice it without judging yourself. The pattern usually started from a good place. You were trying to help things work. The second is beginning to ask, is this actually mine to manage? So when something comes up, stop yourself and ask, well, is this actually mine to manage? Because often it isn't. And the third is allowing some emotional discomfort to exist without stepping in to fix it. And this can be really, really hard when you care about the people around you. But it's so important to learn that not every feeling needs smoothing, not every reaction needs managing. And this is where things will begin to shift. Now, this pattern, emotional over-responsibility, is one of the most common things women bring into back in control. Because by the time you're holding emotional over-responsibility, it's not just that you're thinking about everything, you're exhausted by it, you can't switch off, and you feel like you're carrying the emotional weight of the whole family. And in part of the program, we work on stepping out of that. Not by becoming less caring, but by helping you understand what's actually yours to hold and what never was. So instead of managing everyone else, you can finally feel like you're back in your own life again. So to Laura and anyone else listening who recognise themselves in this, nothing is wrong with you. You care. You've just developed a pattern inside a complex system, and that pattern is no longer helpful. But the good news, patterns can change. If this episode resonated with you, you can find the details for Back in Control in the show notes or search Stepmum space Back in Control. And if you know another stepmum who might recognise herself in this, send it to her. Because one of the hardest parts of stepmothering is believing you're the only one feeling this way. You're not. I'll be back next week with another listener question. Till then, take care. And before we finish, if you're listening to Stepmum Space and recognising yourself in the constant adjustment, the walking on eggshells, the anticipatory anxiety before contact, or the way one message can derail your whole week, that doesn't make you weak. It's a position many stepmums find themselves pulled into inside complex stepfamily systems, and it's more common than people realise. Back in Control is my structured programme for stepmums who are ready to move out of chronic vigilance and into steadiness inside their own home. It's psychologically grounded, contained, and designed specifically for stepfamilies where dynamics feel destabilising. If you're ready for more than just insight, search Stepmum Space Back in Control and you'll find the details. Back in Control, structured support for stepmums who are done walking on eggshells and are ready to feel steady again.